An estimated 350 million people around the world currently suffer from a form of depression, but have you ever wondered why people feel depressed? Is there a scientific explanation for this prolonged unhappiness? Throughout history, there have been many misconceptions about this very common mental illness. The ancient Greeks believed that depression was a result of fluid imbalances of blood, phlegm, yellow and black bile. It wasn't until the Renaissance rolled around that Robert Burton acknowledged depression as a real disease. In the past, scientists hypothesized that depression was caused by a lack of neurotransmitter serotonin, a chemical that is thought to be responsible for maintaining mood at balance. However, this theory was only proved by prescribing medications such as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, also known as SSRIs. Essentially, the SSRIs inhibited the reabsorption of serotonin and thus increasing the neurotransmitters levels within the synapse of the nerves in the brain, and in turn working as antidepressants to relieve symptoms of depression. However, recent research has shown that depression might be something far more complicated than a simple chemical imbalance of the brain. Scientists are now noticing that the growth of the brain cells and connections within the brain could possibly be a huge factor of depression. Brain imaging studies have found that in depression, a part of the brain called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex shrinks. The neurons in this region, which is responsible for decision making and working memory, are also smaller and less dense in depressed people when compared with healthy people. A study on rats proved that these brain abnormalities create problems with the synapses, the place where neurons release neurotransmitters that carry from cell to cell at a rapid speed. The researchers found that in depressed people, a range of genes related to synaptic function were less active in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortexes. All of the genes that affect synaptic function are regulated by a single transcription factor called GATA1, which is overproduced in depressed brains. The rats with more GATA1 has an increased amount of depression-like behavior. Overall, this study proved that variations in the serotonin transporter gene makes individuals more susceptible to depression. The identification of other genes has shown that genetics do increase one's probability of having depression. Other areas of the brain, such as the hippocampus, are also physically affected. The hippocampus controls memory and emotion, similar to the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. The hippocampus shrinks the longer the person is depressed, all while deteriorating cells and networks within the brain. This deterioration may be triggered by stress, which is known to decrease serotonin levels, in turn lowering one's mood. The deterioration of brain cells can be halted by many modern drugs, including SSRIs, which affect serotonin levels. These drugs have an indirect effect on the growth of the brain cells, which could be the very reason why serotonin-based antidepressants appear to help people with depression. However, the drugs only increase the growth of neurons, also known as neurogenesis, because of the other chemicals are released. Although no one has found a definite cause of depression, there are many biological explanations for why people feel depressed. Scientists have proved that depression is not just a feeling of sadness, but a real disease that affects millions of people worldwide. So instead of considering this mental illness as an emotion that can be easily changed, it's time to bring light to the disease and find out what the real cause is. While no one has a say in being diagnosed with depression, we all have a say in how much research and funding is done about it.